The house had been deserted for as long as anyone could remember, a crumbling relic at the end of a forgotten street. Its paint was peeling, windows boarded or shattered, and the garden overgrown with weeds that clawed at the cracked pathway. Locals whispered that the doors screamed at night, yells, wails, and shrieks that carried across the empty neighborhood. Despite the warnings, curiosity pulled me toward it like a magnet. I pushed open the creaking gate, rust scraping in protest. The house loomed ahead, dark and imposing, shadows pooling in every corner. Each step toward the front porch made the wooden boards groan beneath me, and I felt the air grow heavier, almost alive. The front door stood slightly ajar, as if inviting me in. I hesitated, heart pounding, then stepped inside. The air was stale, carrying the scent of decay and old wood. Dust swirled in the pale moonlight that filtered through broken windows. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing cracked walls, peeling wallpaper, and doors that lined the hallway like silent sentinels. The first door shuddered, rattling on its hinges as if breathing. A low, almost imperceptible moan threaded through the air, curling around my ears. Leave, or stay. I moved cautiously down the hallway. The floorboards groaned underfoot, echoing unnaturally. Shadows pooled along the walls, flickering independently of my light. A door at the far end slammed shut with a deafening bang, making me jump. My pulse spiked. The house was not simply abandoned, it was alive, reacting, aware. I tried the first door on the left. It creaked open slowly, though no hand had touched it. Inside was a small room, empty save for a cracked chair. The door moaned as it opened wider, then slammed shut behind me, making the room pitch black except for my flashlight. The air seemed to thicken, pressing around me as if the house itself were holding its breath. I felt unseen eyes watching from the corners, shadows moving just out of focus. A distant shriek echoed down the hallway, followed by the sound of a door rattling violently on its hinges. Whispers threaded through the air, "Do not leave, stay, listen." My flashlight flickered, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to stretch and curl independently. I realized the doors weren't just objects, they were alive, imbued with a malevolent awareness, able to scream, slam, and move without hands. I stepped back into the hallway, flashlight trembling in my hand. Doors along the corridor rattled in sequence, each shriek overlapping the next, creating a chaotic symphony of terror. The floorboards creaked as though pacing in time with the screams. Shadows darted at the edges of my vision, sometimes flickering across the floor, sometimes climbing along walls, always moving, always aware. I reached the staircase. The steps groaned ominously under my weight, shadows stretching along the walls and handrail. A door at the top of the stairs screeched open by itself, revealing darkness so deep it seemed alive. From within, a hollow, wailing scream rolled down the staircase, making my ears ring. The house's presence pressed against me, patient, eternal, aware. I climbed the stairs, each step creaking louder than the last. Doors along the upper hallway rattled and groaned as if reacting to my approach. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching and twisting, forming vague, humanoid shapes that disappeared when I tried to focus on them. Whispers layered over the wails and groans, "Stay, listen, belong, never leave." I reached the master bedroom at the end of the hallway. Its door swayed slightly, as if breathing. I hesitated, hand on the knob. A loud screech erupted from inside, a door somewhere else in the house, and I flinched. But curiosity, mingled with fear, pushed me forward. I opened the door slowly. Inside, dust motes danced in the faint moonlight. Shadows along the walls stretched unnaturally, curling toward me, moving independently of any light source. A sudden slam echoed from the hallway behind me. I spun, flashlight swinging. Another door slammed violently, then slowly creaked open again. The room seemed to pulse with the house's awareness. Every movement I made, every breath, every glance fed its consciousness. I realized then that the house wasn't merely haunted, it was alive, sentient, patient, and eternal. I took a step forward, and the door behind me screeched so loudly it made my ears ache. Shadows darted across the floor and walls, some forming vaguely human shapes that crouched and observed. The whispers became layered, almost intelligible. Do not leave, stay, watch, belong. The house was aware of my fear, my curiosity, my presence, and it thrived on it. In the corner of the room, a door slowly swung open on its own, revealing pitch-black space beyond. The floorboards creaked as if inviting me to enter. I swallowed hard. Every instinct told me to flee, yet something compelled me to step closer. The house was patient, eternal, alive, and it had claimed my attention. I moved cautiously through the hallway, flashlight slicing through the darkness. Every door rattled or groaned independently, some slowly opening, some slamming shut with deafening force. Shadows flitted at the edges of my vision, curling and twisting in impossible ways, independent of light. The air was thick and cold, carrying the layered whispers that seemed to follow me wherever I went. Stay, listen, belong, never leave. I entered what appeared to be a dining room. The table was covered in dust, but chairs shifted slightly as I approached, as if aware of my presence. A door across the room creaked open by itself, then slammed shut, echoing violently through the empty house. Shadows stretched along the walls and floor, some flickering into vaguely humanoid shapes, crouching or peering at me before vanishing when I turned my gaze. I moved to the kitchen. Cabinets rattled and doors swung open without touch. Drawers slid partially open, revealing nothing but darkness inside. The shadows in the corners pulsed and twitched like living things, following me, observing, waiting. Whispers layered over the groaning doors and creaking floorboards. You belong, stay, watch, forever. I climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor, each step groaning under my weight. Doors along the hallway reacted to my presence, screeching, rattling, or opening slightly, then pausing as if watching me. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, pooling in corners, climbing the stair rails, always moving independently. One dark figure darted just beyond my flashlight beam, pausing before vanishing into the wall. In the master bedroom, the door swayed gently, then slammed hard against the frame. A closet door creaked open, revealing pitch-black space beyond. I hesitated, feeling the weight of unseen eyes pressing on me. Shadows curled from the walls and floor, forming shapes that seemed almost sentient. Whispers wove through the room, layered and urgent. Do not leave, stay, belong, listen, forever. I moved to a smaller room adjacent to the master bedroom. Bookshelves leaned against the walls, dusty papers scattered across the floor. Doors on either side groaned, rattled, or opened slightly as I passed, reacting to my presence with uncanny awareness. Shadows pooled in corners, curling and stretching as if testing my reactions. My heart raced, pulse pounding, yet I felt a morbid fascination pulling me deeper into the house. I entered what appeared to be a study. The air grew colder, thick with tension. A door behind me slowly creaked open, then slammed shut on its own. Shadows shifted along the walls, forming twisted humanoid shapes, some crouching, some towering, all observing. Whispers layered over one another, almost intelligible. Stay, belong, listen, watch, never leave. I stumbled into the attic. Dust coated every surface, cobwebs stretched across beams, and broken furniture lay scattered. Doors at the far end rattled violently, some slamming shut, some opening slightly. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor and ceiling, curling and twisting, moving with intent. One shadow flickered toward me, then recoiled, almost as if testing my fear. From beneath the floorboards came faint creaking, like footsteps echoing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Doors on the opposite side of the attic groaned, screeching in protest as if alive. Shadows clustered in corners, writhing independently, some forming vague faces or elongated limbs that reached toward me. The whispers layered into a chaotic chorus: stay, belong, watch, never leave, forever. I realized then that the house's presence was everywhere. Every door, every shadow, every floorboard was imbued with awareness. The building itself was alive, patient, eternal, and it fed on curiosity, fear, and attention. Every movement I made, every breath I drew, every glance I cast, strengthened its sentience. I backed toward the staircase, flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. Doors along the hall slammed open and shut in sequence, creating a symphony of terror that pressed against my mind. Shadows flitted independently across walls and floors, some stretching impossibly, others forming humanoid shapes before dissolving into darkness. The whispers pressed on me, insistent, layered: do not leave, stay, belong, watch, forever. Finally, I made it to the main hallway. The front door loomed ahead, slightly open, bathed in faint moonlight. Shadows pooled along the walls, stretching toward me, flickering in sync with my pulse. Doors groaned and rattled violently, some flinging themselves open and slamming shut, as if trying to block my path. The whispers layered over the cacophony, insistent and eternal: stay, belong, watch, listen, never leave. I realized leaving wouldn't be simple. The house was patient, aware, and eternal. Every door, every shadow, every object contributed to its consciousness. The building breathed around me, alive with intent and observation. Every instinct screamed to run, yet the mansion's awareness seemed to wrap around me, testing, observing, patient, eternal. I sprinted down the hallway, flashlight clutched tightly, heart hammering in my chest. Doors along the corridor flung themselves open and slammed shut with deafening force. Shadows twisted along the walls, stretching in ways that defied logic, moving independently of any light source. Every instinct screamed to leave, but the house pressed on me like a living thing, its awareness almost tangible. A loud, piercing scream erupted from somewhere upstairs, making my ears ring. The air grew cold, thick with the whispers that had followed me all night: stay, listen, belong, never leave. I stumbled over a loose floorboard, nearly falling, and a shadow surged across the hall, following me, writhing with purpose. The house wasn't just haunted, it was sentient, aware, and it had claimed a part of me already. I reached the main staircase. Shadows stretched along the railing and walls, curling toward me. The front door at the bottom seemed distant, small against the magnitude of the house's presence. Doors along the stairs screeched and slammed violently, some opening just enough to block my path. Whispers layered into my mind, insistent and omnipresent. Do not leave. Stay, watch, belong, forever. I lunged down the steps, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Shadows darted across the walls and floor, wriggling toward me, independent of their sources. The house's awareness pressed heavier, almost suffocating, feeding on my fear and attention. A door at the end of the hall slammed shut violently, then slowly creaked open again, as if testing my resolve. I reached the foyer. The front door loomed ahead, slightly open, bathed in the pale moonlight. Shadows pooled along the walls, stretching toward me, flickering with purpose. Doors slammed behind me, then groaned as though sighing. The whispers overlapped in a chaotic symphony. Stay, belong, watch, listen, never leave. I pushed forward, adrenaline surging. I yanked the front door open and stepped outside. Cold night air hit me like a shockwave. Relief flooded my body, but I could still feel the house's awareness lingering, pressing on me from behind its broken windows. Shadows flickered inside, curling and stretching independently, as though mocking my escape. The whispers trailed me into the night, soft but persistent. We are always here, always aware, patient, eternal. I stumbled onto the overgrown lawn, chest heaving, flashlight trembling in my hand. The house loomed behind me, silent yet alive, a sentient presence that would wait for the next curious soul. Even from a distance, I could feel the pulse of its consciousness, patient and eternal, watching, observing, aware. The doors, the shadows, the floors, every inch of the house contributed to its awareness, layered into a sentient whole. Even now, back in safety, I feel its presence lingering in my peripheral vision. Shadows at the edges of rooms twist strangely, doors groan softly in empty hallways, and faint whispers thread through quiet nights. The deserted house was patient, eternal, and sentient, and a part of me remains entangled in its awareness. Every shadow I see, every flicker in the dark, every creak or squeak of a door reminds me of that night. The house does not sleep, does not forget, and it waits, always. And anyone who dares enter becomes part of its consciousness, feeding its sentience with attention, fear, and curiosity. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more abandoned houses, haunted places, and supernatural tales where doors scream, shadows move, and some places never forget.